I'll never forget the first time I heard a modern baseball song. I was 16 years old, it was December of 2012, and my cousin Ben and I were browsing through the trash on bandcamp.com. I remember coming across Sports by Modern Baseball and playing Tears Over Beers just because the song title intrigued me. I really couldn't tell if I loved it or hated it, but I couldn't stop listening to it. Modern Baseball was so different from all the artists I was into at the time, acts such as The Wonder Years, The Story So Far, and Such Gold, to name a few. For me, Modern Baseball was the band that I didn't know I needed, but was everything I wanted. I remember telling my cousin Ben that night, it almost doesn't even sound like they're singing, almost just talking. But from that point on, I was hooked. To be honest, I never saw Modern Baseball as a band that I'd still be listening to this day, but here we are. I always kind of envisioned them as a band that would always be small, you know, the type of band that comes on shuffle and you're like, oh cool, but you never really go out of your way to listen to. Modern Baseball is a once-in-a-lifetime band that seemingly had it all. They had the cute, funny members, they had the charisma, their music was outstanding and relatable, and you could tell that they just genuinely had a good time being around one another, and they came off as really normal dudes that had found success doing exactly what they love. And while I know they're on an indefinite hiatus and there's still a slim chance that they could return at some point, I want to make this video to help preserve the legacy of MoBo. Their music, of course, speaks for itself, but I still wish to do my part in order to spread the good word of Modern Baseball. This video will be broken up into two parts: why I think MoBo got so big, as well as their impact on the scene, and right at the end I'll throw in a tiny little story for good measure. MoBo began in the year 2011 when high school friends Jake Ewald and Brendan Lukens began making music together. Bren and Jake ran MoBo as an acoustic duo until they relocated to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for college. This is where they met their bassist Ian Farmer and their drummer Sean Huber. At that point, Modern Baseball was a full unit and was ready to start putting out music as a full band, and that's what they did. But what's interesting to me is that any individual could move to Philly, start a band, put out some music, and there's basically a 0% chance that you'd see even half of the success that MoBo did. So what made Modern Baseball so special and made them stand out so much to the point where they blew up to the band that they are today? Now, I've been closely following this band since late 2012, and there's so many reasons why they crushed it so hard and became the rock stars that they are today, but I will do my best to condense it down to a few key reasons. When Modern Baseball began, the scene, in quotes, was ripe for the pickin'. And when I say the scene, what I'm referring to is the overarching alternative music scene encompassing pop punk, indie, emo, alternative rock, etc., stuff like that. Most of the bigger bands that you can think of, like Real Friends, The Story So Far, Neck Deep, Knuckle Pucks, Sorority Noise, The World Is a Beautiful Place, and bands like that were more or less just getting started or hadn't even started at all. You also have to consider that the pop punk / emo revival wasn't even in full swing yet, and I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but I'd say the pop punk / emo revival lasted anywhere from 2012 to 2016, with bands like American Football and Mineral coming out of hiding just for the occasion. And bands like Set Your Goals that were really popular in 2008 to 2011 were calling it a day, paving the way for the next generation of pop punk and emo to come along. Record labels like Top Shelf, Count Your Lucky Stars, Tiny Engines, and Run for Cover Records were just starting to grow and flourish, which would only work in favor of Modern Baseball. The reason I'm hurling all of these facts at you right now is to paint a vivid picture in your mind of how vacant the scene was when Modern Baseball began, and how they were able to use that to their benefit, even though that probably wasn't something that they were even aware they were doing. So consider how wide open the scene was, combined with how good they were. It's really no surprise that they blew up as fast as they did. I mean, their music was just so good, which actually leads us into the next key factor as to why MoBo got so big. Their music is, of course, 99% of the reason why they got so big, but that's not enough. We have to dig deeper and find out why. Because you could say that for any band. Oh, their music is so good, and that's why they're so successful. But that doesn't really tell you too much and leaves you with lots of questions. Modern Baseball's music was so good and so well received by everyone that listened to it because it was relatable, which I know may sound obvious, but it was relatable in a way that I honestly don't think I had ever seen done before. On their debut album Sports, technology plays a huge role in the lyrics. In late 2012, Facebook was still reasonably popular among the youth, Instagram was on the come up, and Snapchat was pretty much just being invented. So MoBo's lyrics were very interesting and relatable to a group of teens and young adults that were on social media and had experienced experience social interactions in that fashion. And some might say that writing songs that include references to social media sounds corny, but I'd argue it's no different than bands in the 80s writing songs about talking to their girlfriend on the phone. I think what really solidified the relatability is the fact that they not only talked about social media in an almost confessional way, but they also seem to have little to no concern about how deep or how thoughtful they sounded when writing about those things. Something that I think myself and many other people my age were able to live vicariously through. Nearly every song on sports has some type of social media reference. For example, I'd rather spend my evening talking to Chloe on Twitter than have you come over so it would be like old times. Sober or not, I locked everything you sent me. Texting you sups and haze with a smile or winky face, hoping to get the same. If you were still watching this video, I know there is a 100% chance that you've texted someone a smile or a winky face and hope to get that in return. But would you ever say that out loud or admit it? Probably not, and that's what makes modern baseball so special. They're speaking a youthful 21st century language in a confessional tone, saying things that most of us experience or do but would never admit to. It's like they're doing the hard work for us and getting it all out in the open. The third and final key factor to MoBo's growth and popularity can be traced back to a certain tour that took place in 2014. Modern Baseball had just released their sophomore album titled You're Gonna Miss It All and was ready to tour off it. They literally got the best possible tour offer of all time and they took it up. At this point, the scene we know today had grown tenfold since they had released Sports, and many bands were coming up with them. But getting back to that tour that they went on, it was the Greatest Generation tour with the Wonder Years headlining, direct support from Fireworks, and Real Friends, Citizen, and MoBo opened for that tour. Let me take just a second to explain why this tour was so significant for all bands involved and why it helped MoBo grow so much. Modern Baseball was already rising up the ranks at an alarmingly fast rate after their song and music video for Your Graduation was blowing up on the internet. So you take that momentum that was already brewing and you put them on tour with arguably the most popular and upcoming bands that the scene had to offer at the time. Real Friends is nearing their peak popularity and relevancy in the pop punk world with two massively loved EPs under their belt, a newfound record label they'd signed to, and were about to drop their debut LP. Citizen had just released Tumblr's favorite album of all time called Youth and were in the process of solidifying themselves as a mainstay in the scene. The Wonder Years were one of the most respected, most popular, and had one of the most dedicated fan bases in pop punk, and the year before that, they released The Greatest Generation, which could be argued as the pop punk album of the decade. MoBo, Real Friends, Citizen, and the Wonder Years were able to successfully play off the energy of one another and create the perfect storm to raise each band to a higher plane, something I had never witnessed before at the time, but I think intuitively everyone that attended that show knew it was something special. By doing this tour, MoBo was able to unlock an entirely new fan base and made You're Gonna Miss It All the pop punk shot heard around the world and sent them climbing to the top. So in a nutshell, that's how Modern Baseball got so big. Sure, there are more reasons than the ones I mentioned, but those are the most important and crucial reasons. Their growth and notoriety made them a highly influential band to many in the scene and were able to use this to make a big impact before they left us. Brendan, Jake, Ian, and Sean were able to use MoBo to open up a conversation about mental health within the scene, something that needed to be done but hadn't been addressed yet in a big way like MoBo tackled the topic. To give you a little context before I dive into more analysis, in spring of 2016, MoBo released a documentary about their band called Tripping in the Dark. It gave us a ton of backstory on the band, we got cool stories, fun facts, but most importantly, we were filled in on what had been going on with Brendan in summer 2015. Brendan had been dealing with a slew of mental health issues which led to lots of drinking and engaging in self-destructive behavior. One day he climbed up on the roof with thoughts to end everything, only to change his mind when Jake, his best friend and band member, sent him a clickhole article or something to that effect. After Brendan climbed down, he told his friend Cam from Sorority Noise, who told Bren's parents, and eventually led to Bren being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was admitted into a treatment facility. This was something that Bren was incredibly open with and was talked about and referenced on Holy Ghost, especially on the closer Just Another Face. Modern Baseball was such a magnetic band with members that you could tell genuinely loved being around one another, loved the music that they played, and they just did it because they wanted to.
We knew it from the first time we met them. They were just those kids with that attitude. They're here because they like to do it. And if they didn't like to do it, they wouldn't do it.
They were the type of guys that you wanted to hang around with and be associated with without even knowing them at all. Their passion and authenticity bled through in their interviews, stage presence, and live performance. They made you want to be on Team MoBo without even trying at all. From my perspective, that's what strengthened their message about mental health so much. It made people take it more seriously and most of all be open about it and have conversations about it. By being so generously open as a band, it has made it easier for myself and others to be open to those around us and know it's okay to have mental health problems, and it's definitely okay to talk about it. The way I see it is, if my favorite band can announce to the world that they're dealing with this stuff, then I can talk to a person or two about my mental health problems. If MoBo can tell the world, I can tell a couple people. I don't think a band in the pop punk or emo scene has had that profound of an impact mental health wise like MoBo has, and I don't think any band ever will again. MoBo is a band that comes along once in a lifetime. Before you can even tell them how much you love them, they're gone in the blink of an eye. They were so good that it's like they almost never even existed. Just Another Face by Modern Baseball is the entire reason why I decided to go to counseling and work on all of my mental health problems that I was facing at that time. I was very opposed to counseling or any type of thing that I thought might benefit me, because when you're depressed, you ironically try to avoid anything that might help you get better. I can say for certain that without MoBo's influence in my life, I would have never even considered going to counseling or taking affirmative action to help myself get better. And I don't want to get too melodramatic on you guys, but I was in a really bad place at the time and genuinely don't think I would have made it. It was that bad. I owe this band my life and will love them forever. Long live Modern Baseball.